and forgive me, Arthur, if I get the title wrong. I believe it is God Does Not Eat Meat, and the actual it's fiction, but the subject matter is the premise of the book is that it's about a very powerful and intelligent hunter who he has an epiphany and realizes the moral depravity of what he's doing, and he becomes an anti-hunting activist. I don't know if he patterned that after Steve Hindy or if he did that intentionally or not, but he's going to throw out that challenge for all of them to read his book and come away holding the same point of view, that they're still pro-hunting.
That's amazing. When he's going to be there, did you say?
Tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Great. Well, you've been holding demos like almost on a daily basis. Well, I know I'm exaggerating, but how often have you been doing that?
We've been out there here of late. We've been out there every weekend.
That's amazing.
Saturday,
that is amazing. Without you, sir, burning out?
I'm not burning out, no.
Well, I know that you're not, and that is why you're such a phenomenon.
Well, I just, my purpose here on this planet is to fight for the animals and for the earth. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, that's pretty well my way of looking at it. That, well, I mean, if people believe in the soul, I would say that my soul chose to come to this planet at this time to help out. And I'm glad to meet you here on this battleground, sir. And you, Steve. Steve, comment on Jason's work.
Well, it's really great to see Jason put his theory into practice. And he and I, for some time, have been quite critical of academics or theorists who don't put their ideals into practice and take up an actual existence as an activist and a social critic in every possible way. And for instance, we see this a lot in the vegans who think that just by blogging or going vegan that this is adequate. But it's really important to be involved in the grassroots at all levels. And what's great to see about this campaign is that not relying on PETA or HSUS, it's definitely a local grassroots campaign coming up with its own resources and doing very innovative, creative tactics through direct action. It's not standing out there just with signs and usual sorts of protest. He really is inventing some creative, provocative tactics. He's got a good sense of how to use the media to his advantage.
He's very smart.
Very savvy, and
very savvy.
It's really good to see. It's quite a cutting-edge campaign.
Yeah, I have activists elsewhere, who write excellent articles and send it to newspapers, and they do not get touched, do not get published. Jason's always get published, and they ask me, well, why? Why is ours not published? I said, it is because Jason makes this such a hot issue. It is because of that media is paying attention to what he's saying. I mean, you've got to make it a very hot issue locally before the national media will pay you any notice. And
right, and you could do this without putting naked women in cages, too.
That's right.
That's right.
I think that Jason might consider that tactic for himself.
Yeah, I think that might scare people away.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah. Hey, I
think
appreciate
it's worth commenting on this culling language a bit, and the justifications used for culling, and also what he said about how they're using the deer meat, so-called skin, so-called, to help the so-called needy, right? Because I remember circus is a big deal here in El Paso, and we've gone back and forth with various circuses over the years. And the Shriners is a difficult one to fight because they always say that they donate money to children, so the media always try to point you out as anti-children, right? Anti-medical research if you go after the Shriner circus. So, they have their own sense of being media savvy in the enemy camp, and that is to try to paint you as somehow against the needy, against the poor, against the hungry, if you go after them because they are giving some kind of benefits to these communities. It's just quite a cynical, manipulative tactic. Jason quite clearly pointed out it's just a cloak to hide barbarism and the power that hunters have over these parks and over communities. Because really, this is about bloodlust. This is about people who want to go out and kill and who come up with the resource to do it, which typically is an environmental or ecological justification. And I saw this a lot in South Africa, and they're about to start culling elephants again in South Africa.
In Kruger?
Yeah, Kruger National Park is one of the biggest parks there, and they've made various kinds of claims which have been legitimated, if you will, by scientific experts, and they've claimed that the elephants are overpopulated in certain areas, and we have to cull them, not only to preserve the park for plants, but for other forms of wildlife, and ultimately we just have to kill the elephants. And they start killing as a first solution, not even a final solution, right? But a first solution.
Wow, how
we quite purposely use Nazi language here, because the whole thing is really reeks of Nazism. Because here you have a population that is considered unwanted. It's the deer population in this case, so there are too many elephants in another case. And so the only way to get rid of them is through violence. And the language of culling is some kind of ecological metaphor, as if they're being environmentalists. And of course, hunters have always used the excuse of being environmentally protective to justify their killing. Mm-hmm. But it never has an environmental excuse. They've never been able to prove in Kruger that elephants are in fact overpopulating. I don't know what studies they're relying on with the deer here in this case, but I highly doubt this. And they interfere with these populations. Hunting tends to promote overpopulation. I'm sure both of you have adequate data on this. But let me just make this point. It's neo-Malthusianism, and notice the inconsistencies here that quite clearly coming from speciesist grounds. If humans overpopulate in certain areas, and we might just say planet Earth in this case, if humans are overpopulating, we never talk about let's hire sharpshooters and hunters and just take them out. But apparently it's quite fine if deer or elephant are allegedly overpopulating, just to go in and massacre the population. It's the first. Not even the final solution, is the first solution. And they never talk about alternative ways of controlling populations if, in fact, elephants or deer are overpopulating. It's just, again, an excuse to justify bloodlust and killing.
Absolutely. You've got your finger on the button. And I've told this story before, and I'll take 1 minute to tell it myself. All these cullings that I've seen, and I've seen it in at least, I would say, 25 states, very intimately, and particularly in Pennsylvania, for example, they were saying that this preserve is being decimated ecologically by an overpopulation of deer, and the hunters, the bow hunters, volunteer themselves as the savior of the community to go in there and take care of that problem for the community free of charge, and so everybody in that community accepted that and became very quiescent, but. I and a few activists went into that park on the opening day of the bow hunting season. Of course, there were dozens upon dozens of hunters armed to the teeth with bows and arrows and razor-headed arrows and so on and so forth, and including women. And but when I first looked at that park, all I saw was a big plantation of deer clover, which is a very rich food for deer. And basically, what they did was that they in collusion with the local government, plowed down acres and acres of forest and planted these deer clover to boost the deer population for hunting purposes. And the general public did not know about it or did not care about it, didn't say anything about it. And even after I've taken the photos of this plantation and presented it in person to the local newspaper, and the newspaper reporter was there with me, and he was exclaiming about that. Well, guess what? The next day in the newspaper article that came out, not a single mention of this plantation, not a single photos that I've taken. It is all controlled. So it is all driven by hunting, let me tell you that. And also, hunting is also artificially boosting the deer population hugely. There are about 15 million hunters in the U.S., and they each wanted 2 or 3 deer at least, so they need about 40 million deer to hunt. And so they boost the deer population nationally, and this brought about a lot of deer vehicle collisions that cost 250 human lives and 1.5 million deer lives. And these 250 human victims are statistically consistent. That means that the hunters know that every single year there will be 250 humans dying because of the action to boost deer population. I consider this murder. I consider this premeditated murder of these 250 humans, and I also consider this terrorism because these victims, we drivers, never know when it's going to strike us, and this situation is created by the hunters. So